Um, Thank you, Greg, to invite me, and thank you, Robin, as well, for all the effort and to prepare and deal with all the logistic and thing. Well, good evening. Well, I will present shortly my journey till architectural affairs. So, in fact, when I don't know how it is here, but in Portugal, when you have 16 years old, you have to decide what you want to do when you get older. But actually, when I was 16 years old, my parents and my professors at that time, or teachers, asked me, okay, so what do you want to do? But you have to decide it now, because everybody decides now what you want to do. So you want to be a doctor, you want to be a movie maker, you can choose. And I was like that, completely lost in this translation. And one thing I know, or I knew at that time, that I didn't want just one thing. I want more than those things, literal things. So actually, I think I found myself in a situation that now I understand that almost everybody was passing through, or living a similar moment, because actually the paradigm was changing, the professions also were changing, the social, let's say, way to, the way to live, the way to inhabit, the way to use cities, the way that we use our space. And that time I was not thinking about architecture, but the space, everything was changing. And on that time, I was actually in between two situations. I was sure I wanted to do architecture, but I was also sure that I wanted to do filmmaking or movie making. And on that moment, my father asked me, okay, so let's do like that. So you decide one thing, and then if you want, you can do another thing, but that is not common in Portugal. So if you go to the architecture school, then you do some master in something that is connected with architecture. You don't mix, disciplines or subjects. And that was the moment I decided to study architecture, and then in the end I decided to do a master in architecture and cinema, and a dialogue in between about modernism, about Jacques Tati and Corbusier. And in that moment, I created a dialogue in between an architect and a movie maker. And because of that study, I start to think about the cities as huge set designs. And this scenography in a urban scale aspect actually was something that was, let's say, a key word that was almost forbidden for the architecture academy, and because of that as well, and because I didn't have the answers, I decided, okay, so I will study, I will do the research to know if what I think makes sense, and this dialogue in between architecture and movie makers and urban planners or so on makes sense. Let's see if actually makes sense. Let's see if something new comes from that. And I decided to do, after the master, to do the PhD, and let's say that the journey allowed me to do again a parallel study in between the history of the cities and the history of the representation places. And on that moment, I think to myself, okay, so it's not that uncommon that actually the city, it's known by it's a common knowledge that in the Greek, for example, theaters, the city was used as a set design. So I start again to think, okay, so but let's talk about the future. What will be the cities in the future? What will be this kind of approach of the cities as a huge one-to-one scale sceneries in the future? And in that moment, I do believe that I was again quite lost in translation, but somehow I knew that everything that I could study, or I would, let's say, live in this research phase or moment, everything have a common aspect, that everything was somehow the reflection of the society on that moment, specific moment. And that was the thing. That was the key question, because I knew what was the reflection of everything since even before actually we recognize a city or agglomeration of population as a city. Even before that moment, we knew that we were the reflection of our cities were a reflection of ourselves. But I wanted again to think about the future, and that was in any book. It was not on the Google. It was nowhere, and I was again lost in translation and again full of scare. And that was a moment when actually I decided to go to Guimarães, my old town, my hometown, I mean, and I went there, and they were starting to prepare Guimarães 2012, European Capital of Culture, where actually Tom Fleming was one of the speakers of one of here the talks. Well, he was the city programmer, and I went to him, and I started to do a lot of questions, because actually in between this parallel study, I wanted to, maybe I was believing on that moment that maybe that my case study will be this aspect, a political context or program that is European Capital of Culture. So there is let's say, an amount of money, a huge kind of budget to use for 1 year to improve the city, to improve cultural, to improve new generations as well, to improve new places for culture. And I think to myself, okay, so I talked to my coordinators, PhD coordinators, and I said, okay, so maybe I will move to Guimarães now, and I will study what are they planning to do with this small town. And actually, I went to talk. I went there to make some questions as a I don't know, as a stalker almost. And actually, Tom Fleming crossed my path, and he said, okay, so let's make your questions, but in the program. So let's come to work with us, and let's think together about the smaller cities. So let's think together how the future of the cities will be if we don't, or if we start to think about them and planning them in a way that we are not comparing ourselves to a metropolis. So let's think about our own scale, our own identity, our own conditions. And that was the moment where I finished. In the end of this 2012 project, I finished my PhD, and because of that, I present my book, that is Scenic Space Architecture and the City. And in the end, the life is like that, so it's not just theory. So let's practice now. Let's implement all this theory and research in something that is actually something that I can contribute with policies, with municipalities, with even private clients. But I'm an architect, and I'm Portuguese, so I'm based in this knowledge that, okay, so you are an architect, so you should think and act as an architect. But actually, again, I was dealing with this situation. So I believe, and I still believe, that it's possible to have an architectural office that's spread the discipline in different layers, and our layer is project as an architect too, but also curatorship and edition. And that was let's say I'm now in this moment I'm still convince some of the clients that it is possible to do those three things, but for you could be something that is okay. It's not something, it's not something difficult. You are just, it's normal here, and there is a lot of people who are philosopher, but then is also a physics scientist, and he's a musician as well, and he work in a huge company full of, in Portugal it's not like that again. So what I'm here presenting you is again some reality that is quite interesting, because it's connected with the scale of Portugal, and this is again connected with this crossing paths of myself and Tom Fleming, when he provoked me to think the smaller cities condition and scale and opportunities. And I should say that almost all my curatorship journey is connected with this situation, with this condition. And the first project I will present to you, it's in Maia. I mean, all the three projects are in Maia. Maia is a small town, again, close to, again, a small town, but it's close to Porto. It's like, let's say, 20 minutes driving, but it is actually where the airport of Porto is. So when you go to Porto, you don't go to Porto, you go to Maia. But it's a branding thing, so if you go there, nobody knows that you are actually in Maia. And Maia is this tri-city, let's say, or triptych city, because you have agricultural part, really like rustic. Then you have the industrial zone, very intense. And then you have the dormitory, we should say, so quite high, tall buildings. And it's not known by his architecture. And they invite me, they have an interesting biennial of contemporary art, and they invite me to do the architecture program. And normally this biennial is made, all the curators actually show their curatorship in a normal museum, so don't go to the city, don't approach the city, or if they approach the city, then they will bring the result to a museum, to a specific public. And this case was quite or slightly different, because I was looking to the city with open eyes, and I saw that this industrial legacy was starting to get empty, so we're starting to get with no use. And there is something that is not just happening in Portugal, it's all around the world. There are a lot of typologies in architecture there are now without use, and there are also new typologies coming, and there are also typologies that are somehow slightly changing some aspects. And this is a silo, you know silos, you also have it here, right? So this is for the cereals, and this was actually still unused, but with this decadent, let's say, aspect, or yes, aspect. And from the top view, from the how do you say, the top view? Yeah.
Bird's eye view?
Yeah. When you go on the top of the building, you actually can see that the silos are more than you could see from the outside, and because of that, and also in these all volumes, you could see the city. You could have the best view of the city. And then I went to the inside, and I started to listen to sound, to see the texture of the building, to feel some pictorial aspects. And I start to get, not nostalgic, but I start to live or to get to know the importance to preserve, and also to call attention to this legacy, industrial legacy. So that is why I invite Diogo Aguiar, that is also here, to work with an artist, Pedro Tudela, and also FAR, to work with Dalila Gonçalves, for young blood, let's say, of Portugal, two architects to work with two artists. That is something that I try to do in my work, because it's another aspect from the Portugal practice. you don't mix, again, you don't mix practices. Even in, let's say, in history, the architecture degree were at the fine arts faculty, and since 50 years ago till now, they just they separate the disciplines. So now you have the fine arts, and then you have architecture more connected with engineer or civil engineer than with arts. It's not common to cross those disciplines. So I try to, let's say, bring it back, even if not as a in the academic aspect, because we are still not, let's say, allowed to do that, but we can do it in a practice way. So this is the project I will tell you about. So it's Shaping Shape. Shaping Shape, it's about to invite those teams, artistic teams, to deal with the architectural patrimony, and actually to somehow call the attention to the importance of preserve this identity, this city's identity, industrial patrimony in this case. And Diogo Guiar and Pedro Todella offer us a vision, an intervention that with these mirrors, huge mirrors, 38 meters of mirrors, they create a kind of a division in between the bodies of this building, the night aspect. And in the opposite, Far and Dalila Gonçalves did exactly the opposite. So the challenge were there that they were not connected, the teams were not talking in between them, and in the end we have a meeting and each of the team presents the intervention for each of the facades, so the front facade, let's say, and the back facade. And actually Dalila and Far think in exactly the opposite. So they were inspired by the importance to create connections, to interconnect the body shapes. Again, a kind of a metaphor that we should create connections with the surroundings, with the neighborhoods. And an important aspect of that is that people, the neighborhoods, the inhabitants of this neighborhood, they were not, very proud of this building. It was just something, some industry, something that was there, a thing. But in the end, they were proud of that, and now they have a kind of a hot spot, and they say, okay, so I live in the front of this important place that now have a new or a rebuild. I'm sorry. And then we arrived to the first and let's say the third dimension of the studio, so edition. And because of this project, we create the first publication of the studio as a publisher. That I have it here, and of course you can all read, even if that I'm very pleased to offer you. This Shaping Shape is a kind of let's say the most important moment in the end of a project, where you can let's say call all the knowledge and spread it through the people who doesn't have the chance to actually go there and to see the project. And also I hope that in the end, or in 50 years after this project, people will maybe remember why we do this project, and again they will also have a kind of a memory of what the building was before those interventions. And in the end, it was important also because those projects allowed us to collect some let's say academics to tell us a little bit more about the impact of those kinds of projects. So if you want, please just just see it. But it's a kind of a compilation of projects, again, process of the architects and the artists as well. And then let's move on to a different project. That is actually just happened at the end of last year. If the other one, it was just the architecture curatorship for the project, now it was all the chief curator that I was doing. Again, in the same place. So we are talking about Maya. You can see here that Maya is quite huge for Portugal. And in the middle of that, you cross Porto. You cross Porto. So Porto is somewhere in the middle of this. So Porto is in the middle of that. Of course, grows to different area, but it's again here. And when they asked me, okay, so could you be interesting to do all the Biennale of Maya curatorship? I thought to myself, okay, so I know already there is this triptych city that is connected with the agricultural part, the industrial part, and the dormitorial area. So how can I work with the city and with the real citizens, the real public of this Biennale? I don't want to do a Biennale that is, again, for, a kind of elitistic part of the contemporary art. So there is normally also the client as well. So and the municipality agreed with the idea, and they asked me, okay, so it's a challenge, how we'll do that? And my idea was to create interventions, let's say, in different areas of all the city. So 7 different aspects. And how? So we find a solution, the container. The container is the best solution to spread the content. So we just create a Biennale of containers. It's nothing new. Of course, there are a lot of projects who already did that. So I thought to myself, okay, I can have 4 areas of programs: architecture, fine arts, new media, and design. And I can give 4 containers to each co-curator to work with in these specific areas. So our work, let's say, it was to find a specific hotspot with specific client, I mean neighborhood, and to work and to deal with specific situations. So I will tell you a little bit more about that. This was a library of new media that was on a city center, and the people were going there and they were dealing first what is new media. We are talking about a quite interesting public. It's the citizens of Maya are actually almost not leaving the city. The people was going through, this was the interior of this was the exterior. So this is the city hall, okay, the building of where the mayor is. This container was in this public and political, let's say, place. But then we are talking about new media, and they were like, okay, what is the connection about that? And there was a publication also that we did, so it's connected with fiction somehow, this reality, and to create new narratives about the political areas and so on. And then this other project, there is Andreia is connected with this one from Carlo Philip as well. This one is about the importance of archives. All of them are connected somehow with the idea of changing the experience of the city. So here you have a political message that is quite strong, and let's just skip it. But here you have an aspect that is, if the people were crossing this street here, that is again on the front of the municipality building, they were running to the metro station to take the flight or the train or so on, but they are not stopping and then you are surprised with this Zen garden. And then again here, this is Russian doll from TAC. The program was with Portuguese names and international ones as well. The architectural program was co-created with Diogo, that is also here, and with Javier Peña-Ibanez, a Spanish curator. And actually this is part of their program, so they invite TAC. There is, I'm sorry, but I just missed this point that it could be important for you to understand the project. The narrative was about import-export. Is again connected with the container, but is also part of this idea that in this global world, where is our identity? Where is myself when I read the same book that you read, you go to the same, we all go to the same places. Now it's so cheap to fly from one part to another one. So we all almost see the same things, have the same references. So where are ourselves? And mostly, where are myself when I'm just stuck in Porto and in 20 minutes I have such a beautiful places that I'm not, used to lose my capacity to walk and to, to find myself from my curiosity and to find a world that is just 20 minutes from Porto. And TAC, again, about this idea of transportation and import and export and so on, they create this Russian doll. So these walls that you save inside and inside and inside. And actually, this is a provocation that everything that you have in your home have to be prepared to be contained in a container. Everything is standardized, for this, for that matrix. And it's curious because if you see all this structure, they deal with this this metric. Then provocation about the rhythm and our way to be stuck on the cell phones and how this creates, again, criticisms about important exports. Popticom handle with there is also interesting, also for architects, and this is curious because it's connected with this plastic. Plastic tubes. If you shop online, you open your box and it's full of these plastic tubes full of hair. And they did this project where they actually bring these plastic bags that are inside the containers to the outside of the container. Because why? Because actually the hair is the matter that is mostly transported. It's not a share, it's not wood, it's air. Air is the matter. Again, this is also curious. It's about the rhythm, the time that it takes to transport, and actually you could cycle this bicycle, and you have the power enough to pull your own container. It's a lot of provocations and a lot of ways to approach the theme. This was also interesting, and this is connected. This integrates a lot of people from this neighborhood. Is in the fair we have in Portugal. It's quite known that we have those fairs where you sell products from all around the world. They are supposed to be made in Portugal. But not all of them are from there. But every Thursdays there is this fair, and actually space transcribers this Portuguese collective that is part of people that are spread all around the world. Their practice or the answer for this project was quite interesting, because they asked to each one of the people from the team to go to the fair of their own city. So Berlin, London, Amsterdam, I don't know, Madrid as well, a lot of places all around, I think all Europe or European, and they all brought some object to this fair, and in the end they sell it, they change it for the products from there, and they collected memories from those objects. So it's about, again, spread the memory and to integrate and to involve the community. There was a parallel program as well, and there were also some aspects about the food patrimony as well, and here is Orlando Lovell that brought an old cookie from Maya to the Biennale, and to work with the students and so on. Here are different projects, integration of the gymnastics from a club in Maya in front of the installation, book presentations, some performance, again some other presentations, some parallel events like this. And this is the public of this Biennale. You can deal with artists, but you can also deal with the old lady that is just coming from the agricultural morning of work. A lot of workshops that integrate schools, and some talks. Yeah, and just the end of the last project, I mean the end of the presentation, I will show you one different project, again for the same city, and I will stop to talk about my... sorry. Again, I have here the catalog, if you want to see the dimension of the edition as well, just to collect for the future the memory of the project. And then the third and the last project of today, it's MAM, a project we conceived for Maya. Maya is not, as you saw for the pictures, is not the best hotspot to talk about architecture. Well, at least you won't think in that way. But actually, if you go to if you pay attention in the architectural patrimony, you see that Cisa Vieira, that Sotomor, that the main names of architecture in Portugal actually did there something, a small house, a small farm, a small thing, but they all have a project there. So it's a kind of it's interesting. It's not the hotspot, but actually it looks like if you study a little bit more. And we conceived this project is Architecture Month of Maya, or Maya Architecture Month, I mean. For this year, so we conceived it in 2018, and this year we did the last curatorship, and now the project will be free to grow. And the City Hall will invite, I think, different curators and to give new even criticism to that. But here I call it this edition Fast Forward. So I invite 8 young studios, architectural studios from Portugal, from all around Portugal, to imagine Maya City in 100 years. And the answers were quite interesting. Corpo Atelier, that is a small studio based in Faro, Algarve. He didn't almost nobody knew actually which kind of city was this, Maya. And when he arrives there, he starts to deal with the ruin legacy. And because of that, he started to think about the future monuments. But again, it's somehow an idea of thinking and talking about the new typologies of architecture. So, for example, you saw the silos, the project that Diogo and Pedro Tudela, that is the facade they did, but also you see, for example, from, I don't know if you see, but the second picture on the top from the left, you see, there is a, how you call it? From fuel station, yes. Sorry. And it's interesting because connected with this fast-forward subject, of course, we are talking about the impact of the climate changing in the cities and in architectural situation and the city situations, and the needs that and the urgency to think about that when we are thinking about the future of anything, of architecture, of anything. And actually, when we are thinking, when we are talking, and at least there in Portugal, we are being very aware about the impact of the cars used by fuel and so on. So everybody is trying to change it for a different situation that probably will create emptiness of fuel stations. So what will be the future of the fuel stations? Maybe that will be a future monument, we don't know. But it's important that as a young architects that we are, it's important to think that probably will be the creators of the future monuments as well. So there are monuments that now we don't see them as a monument, but they will become probably. But also there are new typologies that we are now responsible to create them that in the future will be also monuments. So there is this time, let's say, underline here that is important to think about. More participants and more playful is the answer of Andreia. Here an Aragão that just took an image from the city and creates a new aspect of the city, talking about the mobility changings. So high situations and faster and 3 layers of communications and so on. And tension structures from Scray it was an answer connected with the noisy cities and the way that we all live without stopping, and they actually obligate us to do it, let's say, in a faster way. And then some critics and Fala Atelier, they actually create an answer that is they capture all the facades that actually the common sense will say it's ugly, but they say it's not. Let's say it like that, and we can talk about that after, if you want. Different answer, this from Branco del Rio, it's 10 hours per week, so it's connected with this idea that in the future we'll all work less hours, so what we'll do with the rest of the time of our day by day. What we'll do the rest of the time, probably that will change the cities as well. And summary with the reality, virtual reality, you cannot see from this image, but they actually create a new city and they draw it in 3D, an under city of connection, and then everything is green. Spacialistas, with this open work, they create, it's like a stuck in the stomach, a punch in the stomach, you say it? Because you saw all this paper and you think to yourself, okay, what is this kind of answer? What kind of answer is this when we are talking about climate changing? And you spread this paper. Actually, it is a provocation, and it is to actually talk about the process of almost all the professionals, because we spread all this paper in our process. It's true, but actually each kind of paper, each kind of piece of paper use 20 liters of water. So it's not just paper, it's full of water here. Yeah, and again, just to finish, because I think I'm going. Here, just again, the small catalog that could give you some more details about those projects. And that's all. I'm sorry if I was too boring.
Thank you, Andreia. We have time for any kind of questions that anybody may have. Just raise your arm and I'll bring the microphone over to you. No? Of course. Thank you.
Hi, that's really great. You kind of said that you were obviously doing a lot of theory before you obviously went into your practice. Did you feel like you were struggling to kind of delve into the practice side of things because you were doing so much theory, and like how did you make that transition into sort of the action part? Because I feel like I'm very much the same. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you. It's interesting that you asked that, because I was dealing with that in the moment I have a conversation with my family, and I told them, okay, so I don't want to do just practice, and I don't want to do just theory. And in all this process, in the beginning of the conversation, when I told you about theory, actually I never stopped to work. So I was working with other architects in their offices, or I was also, for example, when I was working at the European Capital of Culture, at the same time I was doing my PhD. So I never stopped. I never stopped to do just research, and I never stopped to just work. Even now, as a professor, I have to continue my research at some points for new methods, for development of my own research. So it's something that it's a process that never was just stuck in just one kind of approach. So I always mixed everything, and that was the deal. That was the thing. When I was younger, and I was this lost translation moment, that took me all this process, because still now, I don't believe there is, for myself, I cannot be a good professor if I lose myself, or my practice side. Again, I cannot be a good architect or curator if I don't do my research. So the theory and the practice, even if in this presentation I spread that, it was just to explain you how I arrived to how I create my own studio, how I imagine it. But it's true that for me, it's not possible to spread, to divide or subdivide it. It's not possible. This is why the studio. And this is why the studio. And then I will break down the computer. This is why the studio. This is the new website. You are seeing it, but it's not yet on air. This is the new design by Andreia Garcia and Atelier. This is why we spread this in 3 layers, and they somehow you will see when you will open it in the future. I think in the end of this month, but you will see this is why they kind of create relations in between them. They are somehow contagious. It's not possible for my practice, from my personality, it's not possible to spread. But there are great theories and great practitioners that don't mix things. I do it like that. So to answer to you, the answer is it's not possible. I didn't make this transition because I never stopped to mixture both sides of that. Did I answer? You want to go deeper on that? Yes. Okay.
Any other questions? Where was that?
Thanks for your talk, that was lovely. Can I ask you about how much of the energy and the frisson that you get out of it was because the Maya Biennial is in a place that's slightly overlooked and not central? Do you get any energy and excitement from that?
For sure. Portugal now is quite sexy. But when you talk about Portugal, you talk about Lisbon and Porto. For a Portuguese people that actually know Portugal, probably the sexier part is in the other layers behind Porto and Lisbon. So for sure, the adrenaline, it's in and the richness and the power of urban thinking or territory thinking is in the power of those smaller cities, those small towns, those small villages. And probably, and it's what the theory tells us, now probably with this climate change and so on, they will rescue us. They will rescue us, I mean. So maybe let's see that as a hotspot to, or to create and visions, visions of, I don't know, in Portuguese is antevisões, but to create predictions.
Does it roll through into your architectural practice?
Does it?
Does the energy that you got from the biennial roll through into your architectural practice, and how does it show itself?
Okay. It's very rich when you work with people from municipalities and some private clients, because they inspire in different ways. But when you work as an architect, you again have those type of clients, more private ones and more municipalities or so the challenge about the client is the same, but the inspirational parts of the curatorship or the editorial parts to the architectural practice, I think is, for me, more rich when we, again, the base of everything is the research. Everything starts from the research. And when, for example, when the client of the first project that I have there, the client is a municipality, and they have, we were just talking about that before the beginning of this conversation, but is a municipality and they have a theater, cine theater. Is quite common in Portugal, in all the small towns, that they have cine theaters. There were a period of time in history that all the small municipalities have money to invest in a cine theater. So all of them use that money to actually to build it. But now nobody goes to to watch the cine in these places. So they all go to the malls and so on, to Porto or to Lisbon or to bigger cities close to those small towns to watch in the big screen, big screen places. So they start to to be in ruin, to be destroyed. And now all the municipalities are thinking what we will do with this patrimony. And actually, this project is in Santo Tirso, again, a small town close to Porto, 40 minutes more or less. And they invite us to think or to rebuild it. But when they asked us to rebuild it, they said, okay, so you don't have to do a cine theater, so think about the program as well. Think about the potential for this space, for this place. And we actually will leave the ruin. We will create a new square place, and we will just bring some small boxes. That is what means caixa, box in Portuguese. And we will bring just small boxes where new performers can appropriate, from the space or of the space, and musicians, and we can have workshops and small talks, and a bookshop there, and a small cafeteria. So it's something that it will be very tiny in the end, the intervention, but from that, you can see that if I didn't have this background of research, or if I was not doing those projects, those curatorship projects, of course, as an architect, or probably as an architect, I will say, okay, let's build something as it was. Let's build something huge. But what is the new performance now? Where is the public now? Who is this citizen from Santo Tirso? What will be the future of the sustainability of the program if you build something that is in a scale that is not appropriate for the context? So we as an architect, again, we are responsible for the future, the sustainability of those projects. So again, or for example, in this case, is a concrete specific project that we can see that the things somehow contribute to each other. For example, again, if we talk about Pavilion House, a project we did together, me and Diogo, it's a project that it earned quite well. Sorry? We have internet here? I don't know. No, it's you can just, no, we'll see it after, maybe. But, yeah? So, I will show you one architectural project. Well, it's not a promotion for this in. So, maybe you want to talk as well. So, this tiny pavilion house is a project on top of this Weinhardt, you say? And the client is a private client, and he told us, okay, so please could you build us a house, a guest house? But he wanted kind of a wedding cake. He wanted to build on the top of the pre-existence, that is this on the down part, and he wanted to be like 2 or 3 layers on top of it. And we were just looking to this amazing place, and he said that maybe for a guest house we could concentrate all the program in 70 square meter space. And he didn't believe us, and in the end we just built an open space that integrates all the program, and that transform or open each volume to give the capacity or to appropriate for the use. So we have, let's say, 4 volumes. Each volume hides the program. So the living room, the kitchen, the toilet, or the bathroom, I mean, and then the room. And also it's interesting because it's a creation of an abstraction of the volume. Because, for example, in this part, you don't see exactly if you are on the exterior or if you are in the interior, because these wood elements are on the exterior and again on the interior. So they solve all the skin of the volumes, and somehow you lose yourself and your... here you can see it better. Or not? Well... Oh, okay. So you can see you have the toilet here, the bathroom, and here the room, a bar integrated here, the kitchen, and the living room. All the door elements are very detailed because every system is different. And I can tell you, for example, here the door, the measure of the door is the measure of the wall, because in this way you can hide or abstract the idea of the exterior and the interior as well. And here is the toilet, the bathroom, sorry. Again, is important. For example, here, you cannot, maybe you don't see very directly where is the connection in between what we do in our research part, but there is a lot of research in this project, because every single, even the pictorial, fragment, it was not chosen, it was studied. So everything is connected with some relation. Do you want to say something? No? Yeah.
Great. Do we have one more question? Oh, there's one over there.
Thanks for the great talk. How do you balance the past and the future? So you talked about the fact that we were probably building monuments now for the future, probably a lot of them in Sheffield. So how do you choose what to preserve and what suffers creative destruction? So how do you get that balance between what's gone and what's to come?
Amazing question, very difficult to answer. Each case it's different. I think the balance, it's about to lose it sometimes and to recover it other times, because I don't believe I don't really believe in receipts. So I don't believe in something that you, even as a professor, I don't say to the student, so this is the way you should do it, because each one of us will say, okay, so I want to leave that door, I want to use that door, and some other person will think in a totally different way. What I think is that in the process and in the end, you should respect the past of it, and you can somehow bring it to the final result if you do believe that you are doing it, if you do believe you are respecting it. Because, for example, in this box, I think the respect is not when we leave the ruin there. The respect is when we, because of our research, we discover that the original color was pink, and we will bring it again to the project. And the inhabitants don't know that. They don't know that. And sometimes bring the past or connect the past with the future, it's when you are able to recover it somehow. It's not on the ruin that we respect the memory of that project, it's on the color. It's something more immaterial almost, because nobody can see it or could see it until now. And we just found it because we did this research and we found it. But yeah, it's a tough question, and I think we'll. I think even all the Pritzkers together won't be able to answer in just one way. But for me, I think is to respect my beliefs in the path, in the journey. Yeah, and it's poetic, but I think it's realistic as well.
Thank you very much, Andreia. Can we have one more round of applause for Andreia?